Louise here, and I'm just going to run you through the structure of the Leaving Cert paper for German and some of my top tips to help you get started in September. So as you can see here, I have a breakdown of the paper, okay? So German for Leaving Cert is essentially broken down into three main parts. So the first part is we have die mündliche Prüfung, the oral, which is worth 25%. We have our written paper, das schriftliche Papier, that's 55%. And then we have das Hörverständnis, the listening, okay? So that is worth 20%, all right? So I'm going to start with die mündliche Prüfung, the oral, okay? You will complete your oral around Easter time. So hopefully that will be 25% in the bag then before we start the exams. That'll be done at Easter and we won't have to worry about it then. So your oral is going to be 15 minutes long and it's broken up into three parts. The first part is our allgemeine Fragen. That is where the majority of your marks are going. You get 40 out of 100 marks for your allgemeine Fragen, the general conversation or your general questions. In this part, the examiner is going to ask you about yourself, basically, for 4 to 6 minutes. So it's not very long. It's not a long amount of time. It goes very, very quickly. So it's really, really important that you say as much as you can in this time then. So the key thing with the allgemeine Fragen is that you talk as much as possible. So the examiner might ask you something. Say if the examiner asks you, wie viele Personen gibt es in Ihrer Familie? How many people are there in your family? You don't just stop at es gibt 6 Personen in meiner Familie. There's 6 people in my family. You keep going. You say as much as you can. You talk as much as possible until the examiner stops you. That's the key thing with the allgemeine Fragen. Then you will either do a project or Bildergeschichte, the picture stories. So if you do a project, you will pick a topic that's related to a German-speaking country and you will write up a piece 2 minutes long and you will learn that off and present that, and then you'll be asked a few questions on it. Or you will learn 5 picture series that are kind of related to some of the topics that we'll look at in the written paper, and you'll get one of those picture series. Most of the marks here are going, so 20 out of the 30 marks are going for content. So your description of your project or your description of the Bildergeschichte, and then the rest of the marks will go for your questions and your grammar and pronunciation. So the most important thing here is that we're actually narrating our project properly and that we're narrating the picture series properly as well. Similarly with the role play, das Rollenspiel, that's worth 30 marks. You will have 5 role play cards that you will 5 role play scenarios that you will learn off, and then the day of your exam you will get one of these at random. You are given a role play card, so it's really important when you learn your role plays, when you're practicing them, you practice with the role play card and get used to it, because you will have that in the exam and it has keywords and tips to help you. Okay, again with the role play, most of the marks are going for there's 5 different tasks. Most of the marks are going for completing each of these tasks. So it's really, really important you're following your role play card and you complete each of these tasks accordingly. So that's our mündliche Prüfung. So 25% in the bag then with that. Then we'll move on to our written paper. Now, 55%. This is our main focus really, because that's where most of the marks are going. 220 marks, 55%. It's broken up into 5 different parts. The most important part is your Text 1 and your Text 2, your reading comprehensions. There are 2 reading comprehensions on the written paper. They are worth 60 marks each. 120 marks, 55%, over half of your marks on the written paper are going for reading comprehensions, and people forget about that. So you spend so much time obviously preparing like written tasks, your essays, your notes, your letters, etc. But the reading comprehension, that's where over half of your marks are going. So think of all the time you put into your grammar and you put into your letter and your written work. You need to be putting just as much, if not more time into your reading skills and your reading comprehensions, because that is where most of the marks are going, and that they are difficult. So that is where people lose their marks. But during the year, I will be talking to you about some helpful tips with the reading comprehensions as well. So Text 1, first of all, this is the most important one. This is the hardest one. It's a literature text, so it's come from a piece of literature. You will answer a few questions in German and then you'll answer some questions in English. The part that people get a bit kind of worried about and the part that people fall down on is the question 4. So question 4 asks you for samples of language and expressions, or for themes from the text. So you're kind of reading between the lines a little bit and you're picking out examples of language and themes. It's worth a lot of marks. It's usually worth between 12 to 15 marks. So it's really important that while you're answering the other questions and going through your text, that you know what theme or what feeling you're looking for in question 4, and that you're slowly picking out examples of those themes or that emotion as you're reading the text, because it will save you time at the end. Timing is a huge thing with the reading comprehensions. You will be spending about 30 minutes on the general reading comprehension questions, and then I would recommend 5 to 10 minutes, which I know sounds like a lot, but you'll need 5 to 10 minutes for the question 4 of Text 1 to make sure that you're answering it properly, because there's a lot of marks going there and it takes a bit of time. Your next thing then is your angewandte Grammatik, your grammar question. That is worth 25 marks. It's not a lot. I think that's about 3.25%. So there's not a huge amount of marks going for the grammar section. So I would recommend do not get too caught up on the grammar section. So you'll get 2 questions here to do on 2 different grammar topics. If you can fly through them, do it straight after the text. But if you feel like you're one of the grammar questions that have come up, you're not really too confident with that topic, come back to it at the end, because there's not a lot of marks going here and you want to save that time for your other reading comprehension and for your written work, because there's more marks going there. So that's what I would recommend with the grammar section. Look, it can be an easy 25 marks, but you shouldn't be spending longer than 10 or 15 minutes on it. And if you think you're going to need longer, come back to it at the end, because it's not, if you look at the breakdown of the marks, it's not worth spending all your time on the grammar section when there's other areas we could be focusing on. Text 2 then, another reading comprehension, but generally an easier one from like a journalist, from kind of a, maybe like a journalistic point of view, or from like an extract from a book or a magazine or something like that. So it tends to be a little bit easier than our Text 1. There it's just general questions, so it's more straightforward. But again, 60 marks there. You should be spending, again, about 30 to 40 minutes here. So that's where most of your time will be going. It'll be on the Text 1 and the Text 2. I forgot to mention there as well, your grammar section is actually linked to Text 1. So if you're confused, go back and look at your Text 1 and find the grammar that they're talking about. It can help you. Similarly, our Äußerung zum Thema, our opinion piece, is linked to Text 2 usually. So whatever theme, there's a general kind of theme on the paper and in the reading comprehensions. Whatever theme comes up on Text 2 will tend to be linked to our Äußerung zum Thema. So say if our Text 2 is all about Sprachen lernen, learning languages, then there will probably be something with learning languages on the opinion piece as well. So your opinion piece, you'll have a choice of 2 questions. There's a picture to describe, and then you have a few questions to answer related to a theme, okay? Now, it is only 25 marks. You should not be spending longer than 15 to 20 minutes on this section. People tend to get caught up on the Äußerung zum Thema and write pages and pages and spend all their time here. You do need to write kind of a nice amount, but at the end of the day, it's only worth 25 marks. So don't be spending longer than 20 minutes on your Äußerung zum Thema, okay? Because the next kind of the second biggest chunk of marks is going for our schriftliche Produktion, our written section. So here you have a choice of 2. Again, you would either write a letter. Most people tend to go for option A, the letter, because they're kind of more familiar with that structure. And the second section is similar to the Äußerung zum Thema. It's a picture with questions related to a mixture of different themes. So I'll start with the letter first of all. The letter is broken up into 4 different paragraphs, and each paragraph will have a different theme, okay? And in this paragraph then, there will be questions related to a theme that you will have to answer and write back to. And similarly then, with the option B, there'll just be questions that you have to respond to. The key thing, whether you're doing the letter or the option B for the schriftliche Produktion, is that you answer the question asked. And I know that might sound really stupid, but you would be surprised at the amount of people that get caught up on trying to just throw in loads of lovely phrases and expressions and opinions, but they don't actually answer the question asked. So what I would recommend is, before you, whether you're doing option A or B, highlight every single one of the questions, or wherever you see a question mark, highlight it, number it if you have to keep you on track, and then answer that. Once you have that exact question answered directly, then that's when you add in your other phrases and expressions and opinions, etc. Okay, so it is always really, another thing I would say there, never just leave it at the answer, similar to the oral. Don't just leave it at the answer. So of course, answer the question, that's the most important part, but give more then. Never just leave it at that. give another few lines, opinions, expressions, idioms, because that's where you will get your marks for expression. So the marks for your letter is broken up into content and expression, 25 for content, 25 for expression. But even if your grammar and your language is perfect and beautiful, you will not get full marks for expression unless you get high marks for your content, for answering every single question. So that is why answering the question asked directly is so important. That's the most important thing that you should be worried about with your written work. Finally, then, das Hörverständnis, your listening, that is worth 20% or 80 marks at a higher level. Now, the listening takes place after the written paper. So once you've done your written paper, you'll have your listening. So don't leave the exam, okay? Once you finish your exam, you still have to do your listening. So don't walk out the door, don't leave, because you still have 20% to get with your listening, okay? So that'll happen after your written paper. Listening is fairly straightforward, about 40 minutes long. And there's 4 different parts to it. So you have your interview, your telephone call, conversation, and news and weather. All of them except the telephone call will be answered in English. The telephone call is the only one where you will have to write some answers in German, okay? I have a star here behind beside the interview and the news and weather, because that's where most of the marks tend to go to. With the telephone call as well, they will usually ask you at the end for some examples of like how the person was feeling, to give examples of how, say if the person seems stressed, can you give examples of this? So what I would do is, again, if you hear any examples throughout the listening, just jot them down, and you can always pick the best ones at the end. If you are ever asked for examples of language, because they ask for that on the written paper with the reading comprehensions as well, it's really important that you either quote directly or paraphrase directly, okay? So either take the German quotation directly, word for word, or paraphrase it or rephrase it into English directly, or you can do both, whichever you want. News and weather as well tends to be quite quick, so be careful with that. My main tip with the listening that I tell all my students is to have a rough piece of paper with you. So when you hear things, you can jot it down on the rough piece of paper, and then you can always then transfer it onto the actual exam paper then after. And always as well, write down as much as you can, because you'd be surprised at things that come up on the actual marking scheme that are worth marks. Whatever you hear, even if you think, oh, it could be a long shot writing that down, write it down. And another key thing that I forgot to mention with both the listening and the reading comprehensions, key points, bullet points. Do not write big, long sentences. They just want keywords and phrases and bullet points. That's all you need. Do not be sitting there spending hours writing long sentences, whether it's in English or German. If you look at any of the marking schemes, which I will break down later in the year as well, it's all key points and bullet points. So keep it simple, keep it short. That's what they're looking for. Okay, so that's a breakdown of the paper. My top tips, if you're starting your Leaving Cert now in or starting 6th year in September, and you're doing German and you're wondering, okay, or 5th year, where do I start? What's the most important thing? My top 3 tips would be, I know this might sound basic or straightforward, but learn your vocabulary. You will not progress in a language unless you're learning your vocabulary. So every single day, any new words that you hear, if you're doing a reading task or listening, any new words that come up, don't just wait for your teacher to tell you to take them down and learn them. You should have your own little notebook or section of your hardback where you're writing down new vocabulary, okay? Any new vocabulary that you come across, particularly in reading comprehension and listenings, write it down, go home, learn them, okay? Because it's the good thing with a language is all the same vocab pops up everywhere. So vocabulary that you'll use and see in your reading comprehensions, you'll also use and see in the listening and in your written work, etc. So that's why it's really, really important that you learn your vocabulary, and that's the best way to expand, obviously, your own vocabulary as well. Practice reading comprehensions in your own time. I'm sure a lot of you do them in school and as parts of tests or for homework, but it's really important if you're looking for that H1, those higher marks. Remember the breakdown of the marks, most of it is going for the reading comprehensions, and think of all the time you spend practicing your oral work or like learning your notes, etc., and doing written work. You need to be spending that amount of time, if not more, on your reading comprehension. So in your own time, practice reading comprehensions from exam papers, from books. Even if you go on to, there's a lot of like nice websites and stuff as well, like Deutsche Welle, read an article, see how you got on with that. Again, any new words, take them down, learn them. Last thing then, have a bank of phrases, expressions, and idioms that you can use and transfer into your different kind of areas in German. So that's the first thing usually that I give to my 5th year students. is a list of key phrases, expressions, and idiomatic language that they can use. So we learn them. So we take a few phrases each night and we learn them. That's really, really important. If you want to score highly in the expression section, they're looking for rich, varied language and idiomatic or colloquial language as well. And if you have a bank of phrases, it elevates your language, and as well, you can use it in everything. You can use it in your oral work, you can use it in your written work, you'll see it in the reading comprehensions, etc. It just brings your language up to that next step, and that is what distinguishes the H1s from the H2s and the H2s from the H3s. It's the idiomatic language and the richness in language and vocabulary. So that's really, really important as well. So hopefully that helps. That's all my tips. I'll be talking to you during the year and breaking these down a little bit more. But yeah, viel Spaß.